That's all right. Wait, let me get over here. Now I won't be in your way.
That's good.
How about that?
Perfect.
Huh? Yeah, I'm against the wall. See our tall corn? But y'all didn't come see it. Y'all come see bats. That's bats coming out of the Bracken Cave. Y'all been to Bracken Cave? There's supposed to be 20 million mother bats in that cave. And every year in winter they go to Mexico, and that's where they meet the males. And then around February sometime they come back and have their babies in the Bracken Cave. And about 50% of them survive, so there'll be 30 million bats in that cave. That's what the cave looks like. It's all the W, 3009. And there's the bat. That one, it knew I needed a picture up close, so it came to the office and hung a wall, so I got pictures. And there's the young one. When they come out, I mean, they're coming out in swarms. And this young one, he got bumped to the ground, was all out of wind. Pretty soon he crawled up on the rock, took off. And now we're looking inside the cage. See, this is solid bat thing. 20 million mother bats. After the younger born, there's probably 30 million bats in it. And they got these figures by photographing bats in a square foot. And they photographed the ceiling where they were hanging, then they went back later and they got the measurements from the ceiling, you know, how many thousand square feet times so many bats per square foot, they come up with 20 million. That's how thick they're hanging out. These are all the young. There's a mother bat. Now when they're born, she's hanging upside down, and that little bat has to come out there and cling on somewhere. Either have to hang on her, and you know, get its first milk, then it's got to hang on to the ceiling somewhere. So there's probably 50% mortality.
Each bat only has one baby.
They may be twins, but I think it's just one. And I didn't take this picture. Bat conservation and nature. Bat there is called a moth. And when these bats come out, they go up as high as 10,000, and they can pick them up on radar. However, the main food for this bat is a corn earworm moth. And they followed the corn earworm moth up here from Mexico. See, they're planting corn in Mexico earlier than they do here. And of course that moth flies up at 10,000 feet. And the moth itself can be in such thick colonies that they can even be picked up on radar sometimes. And probably without the bats eating those corn earworm moths, we probably couldn't build corn. It would take a heck of a lot more pesticide to build corn. And here's one that's going to get itself a drink. See his tongue sticking out. They drink like a martin does, and they skim over the water. And there's one that's called a scorpion. This is not one of the bats that live in Bracken Cave. That's a different bat.
They eat those scorpions. Good old bats.
And here's 3 brown bats. We had a little apricot tree before it died, not too far from our front door. And I walked down one morning toward the mailbox, there were 3 or 4 bats hanging up in it. But a different bat, just a brown bat. This is not the one that's in the Bracken Cave. And this is what the floor of the Bracken Cave looks like. See all those mouse droppings? Those are bat droppings, but just like the mouse droppings. And this is a beetle, that's the larva of this beetle. And that larva hatches and eventually it pupates into a beetle, and what they're doing, they're feeding on the guano on the bottom of the cave. For the bat droppings. And there are 2 species of that beetle. One of them is a herbivore, that feeds on the guano is another one, the carnivore. It feeds on dead bats only. And when I first moved out there in when did you move out there, 68? And there's an old man lived behind us on Warbach Road. His name was Warbach. And I asked him if he knew anything about the Warbach, about the Bracken Cave. He said, yeah. He said, my folks bought that cave in 1906. They started harvesting it in 1896. And he said, we used to camp in that cave. And they would get it out, clothesline it out in front. Later on, there's a big room in the far back end. And that room has got a cathedral ceiling that goes all the way up like this. And it's 100 feet from the top of the ground to the bottom of the cave or the guano down there. But that cathedral ceiling, it stopped about 16 or 20 feet from the top of the ground. So they got some surveyors down there, and they pinpointed exactly where that, the point of that ceiling came up, or that cathedral ceiling came up. And they got a black guy to dig a shaft all the way down. So now they got a shaft about 6 foot in diameter. And after they did that, then they could, put hang a pulley on a scaffold above, I guess you'd say, and then hoist it out the back of the cave. They wouldn't have to clothesline it or drag it all the way to the front of the cave. And that big room is about 40 feet by 40 feet. And the guano is, I don't know how deep it is. I went down in there with a 20-foot rebar, and I poked it down, kept going down, so I only had about 2 feet sticking out. And when I pulled it up, at the bottom of it was crude oil. One year, when we had that flood, I went down to see, what happened to the cave, and as soon as I walked down there was a creek cut in the guano. It was about 4.5, 5 foot wide, and it depends on the depth of the guano all the way back. And I said, oh my gosh, the back room is going to be full of guano, we won't be able to harvest. No, it went in somewhere. Y'all are drinking it if you drink after the water. It just disappeared underground. Well, those two species of bats, like I say, one of them feeds on any dead bat, and the other one just feeds on guano and chops the guano all up. So actually, the stuff we harvest, if it looks like little mouse droppings, well, that's bat guano. But the stuff we harvest and sell is a powder. All we sell really is beetle poop. We're not selling bat guano. But how would we ever sell beetle poop? Huh? Well, that carnivore beetle, if a dead bat hits the ground, it eats it up. Licks the bones clean. And any dead animal or any animal gets down in there and dies, it licks it clean. There's nothing but a pure white skeleton. Well, Ollie Marbach told me that years ago, somebody gave the University of Texas a small whale that beached and was dead. And they wanted it. And they wanted the skeleton. So what they did was drag that whale down into the cave, and the carnivore beetles licked that skeleton clean. That's a pretty white skeleton. Now, during World War II, the government took over Bracken Cave. And they had sentries all around it. Nobody could get near it at all. And what they were doing, they were down there, maybe y'all read this story, it's been published several places, in magazines and stuff. They were capturing bats and putting a little incendiary bomb onto their wing or their leg or somewhere. And they would have these, they had telescoping cages that they could have 100 bats, still stacked, cages this big. And then they flew over West Texas, and they had a whole bunch of tar paper shacks and pasteboard shacks and stuff, and they turned all these bats loose during the day. And of course the bats went right down to the ground looking for some place to hide. Well, they went into these cardboard and old wooden shacks, and they pulled that string off of them that little incendiary bomb was tied to, hopefully. And a little incendiary bomb stayed laying there, and there was 2 acids in there that would eventually erode together, and it would strike like a match. And sure enough, they circled around these B-29s, whatever it was, and sure enough, pretty soon all them old shacks caught on fire. Well, they were going to do that in Japan. They were going to drop a bunch of leaflets and say, if you don't surrender, we're going to set all your houses on fire at the same time. Well, they got the atomic bomb before they had a chance to do it. And it would have been a lot saner, and it probably wouldn't have killed hardly anybody if they would have, set their houses on fire with these bats, because the people could have got out of the houses. And they'd been superstitious. How are you going to set all these houses on fire at one time? They couldn't have done it. But they didn't go through it. And here's another close-up of the beetles. They eat that stuff up, there's nothing left but powder. And then those beetles disappear. I asked Merlin Tuttle and the people that take care of the place, and I've tried to find them myself. Once they eat all the guano up and chop it up into a fine powder, they disappear. I've rolled rocks around, I'd find 2 or 3 of them, but there's millions of them. I mean, the floor is just solid with these beetles, all the bats are. And I asked Dr. Merlin Tuttle, he said, we think maybe they just fly out and, go get into Kelman or something like that, because they are like a tumblebug that you don't move. And this is a whole collection of larva skin casts. One year I went early, the bats are already gone. I went down and inspected the cave, see if ready to harvest or not. And I saw it looked like a river running through the cave. And I said, oh my gosh, the spring broke out in this thing and that water's running all the way to the back. When I got closer and looked, well, it was the draft from the air coming in the big mouth of the cave and then going out the back of the cave, and it gathered up all of these skin casts because they're light, they're real light, and left them in a pretty little, like a creek, just on top of the ground. I took a picture of it, but I didn't get a big one. And there's a couple of 3 skeletons and a backbone and rib cage of a bat. Whenever a dead bat hits the ground, that's all that's left of it within a few hours, because the beetles eating of it. Which there's the sanitary department of the cave. And there we are harvesting it. Guy walked in our office one day and he saw bat guano on a shelf. And boy, he lived in a Delphine and told her lady we're going to spread histoplasmosis and rabies and all kinds of diseases. Don't you know that's very dangerous? Well, nobody fusses at her, let alone strangers. She can learn off. So you don't talk to my husband, she didn't pay no attention. So he come back and he started fussing at me. Of course, I act real innocent. I said, oh my gosh, fella, there's a problem. Let's find out about it. Who do you think we should call? The guy said, well, call the health department. So I said, here's the phone book, give me a number. He got me a number, and I called over, and he said, yep, we got a guy here that's very knowledgeable in that, but he's not here right now. I said, well, I need him now. Where do you reckon I can find him? We think he went over to the extension service. I said, well, I know everybody over there, so I called over and got him on the phone. And I told him I was harvesting the guano out of the Bracken Cave, and I was putting it in little bags and selling it all over the United States and even shipping it overseas. I said, any problem with that? He says, none whatsoever. He says, that stuff is completely clean. He said, it can't hurt you in any way. Well, I asked the mailbox if anybody there working in that cave ever got sick, and he told me, no, just the opposite. He said, if a person went in that cave, if they had the cold or a flu or anything, a few days in that cave and they got over it. Well, I watched that, and sure enough, one of us or our employees went in the cave, they got over it. And I was talking with Dr. Chuck Edia about that, and he said, well, yes, that happened. I said, well, how is that? He said, well, in your respiratory tract, he said, you got to have the right microbial activity to ward off or to keep off the bad germs. He said, you get a cold or a flu when you lose those beneficial microbes in your respiratory tract. He says, in the bat guano, you only have the beneficial microbes. So I carry a little bottle of it with me in the pickup. I'm in the car today, I can't show it to you. It's half full of guano. And if people are worried about it, I shake it up and get it real dusty and take the lid off, take a big sniff. And if I feel a cold or a flu coming on, cure it that fast. See, the guys are not wearing any mask or anything. BCI, I would like to see them wear a helmet because the rocks every now and then does fall off the cave. The little one, that helmet do some good, but when them big ones fall off, now the helmet. And there they are down in there piling it up over a big, I used a Venturi, blowing air, and it sucked it out. I used 2 lines. And of course there was a guy we had with a big vacuum, and we were getting 90% of it in the truck, the rest of it just blew around. And there's a rig I find. This is the best. This was the cleanest, and there was no waste. I was blowing it up into these bags. Like I had these bags made at this tent place, or this awning place on I-35. And I'd blow it into one of them, and then it would go out of that one into another one, and out of that one, you know, when they wanted to stay full. And then one of them, you can't see it here, we was augering out of the bottom. And it's on one on the other side of the tractor, was augering out, and it's coming out continuous. And we got guys over here bagging. One guy is holding bags, and then as soon as it's full, another guy grabs it, and he sticks a bag under there in a hurry, and very little is wasted on the ground. And all the male employees weren't their time to work down there. And I think the first trip they brought in was on a 1-ton truck, and the trailer was like 200 bags. I said, "Is that all y'all got?" So the next day I think they brought 230, and then another crew went down there and they got 240, and pretty soon they was up around 300 some bags. They was really working, you know, see who could do it the fastest, get the most. And that's the way it's packaged. That's the new package, naturally. This is the old bag. Excellent fertilizer. It's about a 10-3-1 formula. And some of it's immediately released, and then a lot of it's tied up. Nitrogen is tied up in the chitin, and that makes it real slow release. And it's hard to burn, but you can use it on lawn or somewhere, and it's fertilizer for 2-3 years. You can see the results. And when I was doing it all, I shipped most of it to California in, you know, tow sacks, 2 or 3 tractor trailers, whatever we had. And I called that guy out there one day that I was selling it to. I said, "Who buys this stuff?" He said, "Oh, the grape growers use it. They gotta have it. It makes the best wine." So for next year, he didn't remember what he told me. I said, "How do you package that stuff?" He said, "Believe it or not, Malcolm, it all goes in 3 or 5 pound bags." Now, why would you put guano in 3 or 5 pound bags for the grape growers? Well, I found out why. Those hippies would come in our office. They'd always want to buy guano. It grows the best pot in the world. And if y'all want to go see bats firsthand, and numerous species of bats, and pet them and play with them and everything, go up to Mineral Wells, Texas. What is that, Highway 281 that goes through there? Well, it's an old town, and a lot of old buildings are vacant, and this lady right there, Lola Monder, Amanda Lola, or what is her name? Huh? Amanda Lola, yeah. She found, or somebody gave her, she got a wounded bat. And she kept it, she nursed it back to health, and she carried it around her pocket. It was kind of on her shoulder and everything. It was her pet. And then other people started bringing her wounded bats. And pretty soon, she had a big room full. And there's a bunch of old vacant buildings up there, and the town gave her one of these buildings, or the upstairs, you know. And oh, she got all kinds of little places. She makes special little nest for them. She sews socks, and they go down into it. She lets them out to exercise and everything. It's a good place to go. It's really neat. And we were making bird houses, or bat houses for her. And she was putting them up everywhere, trying to find out the best heights and everything. I haven't seen her in a long time. I need to go back up there and see if she's still in business. And if it wasn't for these people right here, we probably wouldn't have bats, because they were beginning to last cave shut, and they wanted to clean them out from under the Congress Street Bridge, and somebody said, "No, we better think about that first." Y'all know the story on the bats on the Congress Street Bridge? Well, the way they designed that bridge over, what is that, the Guadalupe? Colorado. Well, the bats found a perfect spot to hide in. And somebody said, we got to get rid of them nasty bats. And somebody else said, well, wait a minute, let's find out what they're doing. They studied up on them and found out that their main or chief food in that area was mosquitoes. And then Merlin Tuttle got involved, and that's when Bat Conservation International got started. Now, that's a big tourist attraction, the Congress Street Bridge. And the martins do a pretty good job during the day, but the moths and the troublesome insects really fly in at night. I'll tell you a story on martins. I let an old gentleman I worked with at Sierra Roebuck one time put 13 beehives, with a lot of them had 3 and 4 supers on top, in our little barnyard, and that was the first farm we had. And then I got to study up on the purple martins in Organic Gardening Farming magazine, so I had the guy to build me 2 real big, pretty martin houses. I put them up on 4x4s, and they were about from here to that wall apart. And this guy's bees were right under them almost. And this guy come out and he said, oh man, you got to take that martin house down. They're going to eat my bees. And I said, no, them martin houses stay. We done got attached to them. One of them was a big black male. He would go up in the air toward the sun. He would come dive at you. And about 8 or 10 feet above your head, he would flop his wings and make a bunch of different sounds and flutter back off. And every time the kids or I or somebody walked back, he loved to do that. He'd do it in the evening all the time. We called him Old Over. And he came back several years in a row. Anyway, one morning I was going down to milk a cow, and I saw a purple martin coming soon right in that house that fast. I said, good night, what's the matter with that thing? It's crazy or something? And I saw it again. Then I started paying attention. And one morning I was going down to milk the cow. I happened to silhouette it against a big white cloud. And here came a martin right in that house. And there were 3 bees chasing him. Like 3 fighter planes chasing the B-29. One of them was behind the tail about that far, and one of them off of each wingtip, about this far off the wingtip, but back in the draft. This was beautiful. Anyway, that mark made all this, and right in that house wide open. How it stopped in 6 inches, I don't know. Well, the wing bees parted like this, and the tail bee went across the top. Boy, it was so beautiful. If I just had a movie camera to take that. And then we'd watch for that, and that happened every year with the bees and the martins. Well, when Howard Garrett and I did that bug book, Texas bug book, that story is in there. And Texas University Press wanted a graduate entomologist to read that book, approve of it, make sure they wouldn't publish something that was wrong or false or something like that. So the first person that read it, I think it was Dr. Charlie Cole. He was a good friend of mine. That's who I suggested to send it to him. When he got to the part about the honeybees chasing purple martin, he sent it back. He said, don't publish this. These hicks don't know what they're talking about. I called Charlie. I said, Charlie, what's the matter with the book? He said, now come. You got a story in there about the honeybees chasing purple martin. I said, yep. I saw it. The neighbors watched it. We watched it several years. My kids watched it. He said, no, y'all didn't see it. I said, why didn't you tell me that? He said, Malcolm, a martin can fly 40 miles an hour. I said, yeah, I'd have died. He said, a bee can only fly 12 miles an hour. I said, yeah, I'm when it's working honey. You know, when it flies fast enough to stay airborne. I said, Charlie, did you time a mad bee? He said, well, no. We see, the bee was in the draft, and the bee was mad. They fly as fast as they want to. When I had that yard on I-10, I had a guy over there mowing in the creek bottom, and he ran into a barrel, and that thing was full of bees. And that tractor was 16 miles an hour on the road. Well, he was going 16 miles an hour, all that tractor going, and bees were flying around. When I was in high school, I could run about 15 miles an hour, pretty fast anyway. And cold morning, and there were no bees. I couldn't hear them, couldn't see them, so I was sitting there banging on that box. Well, they only put up with that for so long. Here they came, and I ran down that dirt road. I know I was going 16 to 18 miles an hour. And they were flying circles around. So a bee can fly as fast as it needs to. When it's working honey, Charlie said they worked and working honey. I said, well, they're only going to fly as fast as they need to. Anyway, that was first group. I forget what it was. The entomologist did not want that book published. They ever find anything grows, and that thing they found wrong with it was a big, long scientific name for a big red ant. A P was in place of a T. That's an error. And then the next thing they found wrong was, there's old peach tree trunks, there's an Indian live peach tree, there's a wood ant gets in it. And it's a wood ant. But that particular ant can do backflips, so they call it an acrobatic. It's still a wood ant. Anyway, I don't know if y'all seen the Texas Bug Book. It's a hot seller. It's already in the second publication. They put some new stuff in it. Ain't they beautiful?
Messy.
Huh?
Messy though.
Well, you can sweep it up.
More like
Sure,
straightening
baby's
it up.
diaper, don't you?
It's good fertilizer.
At least you don't have to feed them. And that Roadrunner, this was on the other farm when I bought that really expensive camera and I was, taking pictures of nature. And this Roadrunner realized I had a camera in one of her pictures, so she came through the backyard and looked at me and I snapped a picture and she took off. Geckos. We got a lot of them around now. We used to not have them. Where'd they come from?
Advertising.
From where?
Mediterranean.
Mediterranean? It was one of our customers maintains a big atrium. A place like this, it's all glass and it's full of plants of all type. And they had fungus gnats in there and everything else, and they couldn't control it. And I told that guy, I said, come out after dark. There's about a dozen gecko lizards on my office under the floodlight out there, and he caught about 6, 8 of them, turned them loose, and they're up there. They hide during the days. Nobody would see them. And they do a pretty good job too, catching insects. Has anybody seen a horned toad lately?
No.
Not lately?
Long time.
Been a long time since I've seen them.
Out around Brownwood, there to San Angelo, you see them.
I saw one out Big Bend. Nowhere around this place. That's the green monster.
Great picture.
Grasshopper.
The green monster. It's it's grasshopper family. But it eats grasshoppers.
All right.
Yeah. That thing would never let me get a side view of him. I'd move around and he kept, he had me bluffed.
Flames will scare everybody.
Yeah.
How big is it? About like the size of a grasshopper?
Yeah, very big thing. Yeah, big thing. They eat grasshoppers. I didn't know that. I didn't know what they did really. Kim's nursery over in Bastrop. Somebody brought them one of the little cages. And they fed it 2 grasshoppers, 2 small grasshoppers every day. There's the honeybee. No, that's not a honeybee. That's a sweat bee or it's got another name.
Gossip bee, I believe, isn't it?
A what?
Gossip bee.
Could be.
They buzz in the ear.
There's another one. Terrific fly. I believe that's right. Who said that? Oh, well,
Your wife.
So it's this one before. They've always said if we lose all of the honeybees, what we do for pollination? Well, the Europeans brought the honeybees over. What was doing the pollination before the Europeans? She did. And now she's not like a honeybee. Honeybee will go to a flower and stay there a long time collecting honey. Not her. She's impatient. Let a guy put a bunch of crepe myrtles on our place one day, and they were all about this high, and I had 6, 8 rows of them, about 200 feet long. And boy, there was every kind of beings like to think of, and I always wanted a picture of one of them, but they would never sit still long enough. They drink a little here, there, and yonder. Well, I know this one was female. You know how I know? When it realized I had a camera, she stopped and posed. Armadillos. Don't see too many of them anymore. They keep getting killed on the highway. I don't think it'll give you leprosy, will they?
They do carry it in South Texas.
They do carry it in South Texas. Anyway, they live off of drugs in the ground. And they boil holes. And rattlesnakes share that den with them. And that's a little homeless snake. Y'all recognize her? Lady legs. You notice all these acres around, and lady legs hatch. The little larvae will have rock feet on them. There's one of them that's hatched. That's what a lady larva looks like. That turns into a lady bee. This is the stage that it eats continuously. It eats all the time. Aphids, mostly. Because it's growing and growing and growing, and it needs to store up a lot of food so it can pupate. And then that turns into this. That's where it doubles up. And it hardens up. Then everything in it dissolves and rearranges. Then a beetle comes out with wings and wing covers, male or female. And the back splits for them to come out. That's a lady beetle larva. It's the pupa stage. And we used to think this only happened in California. This is the way they hibernate in California. However, this picture wasn't taken in California. This picture was taken in the mountains, about a quarter mile behind the McDonald Observatory, in June. So they weren't hibernating. Well, I've shown that to numerous entomologists, and they said, we ain't never seen that. You sure that's West Texas? Yep, that's West Texas. Look at the background, it's West Texas. Since then, I've ran into 2 or 3 people that have seen that in West Texas. And what I think it is you see it's really dry out there right now. And lady beetles live off of other insects. And if there's not enough food supply to go around, they just probably just hibernated on that tree. And they may be eating on that lichen that's on there. I don't know. He said they weren't moving. Anyway, since I showed these pictures, several other people told me they too have seen this in the Big Bend area. Lots of lady beetles. That'll turn into some kind of big old beetle or something. Or a butterfly or moth or something. I don't know what it turns into. I didn't keep it. Probably a moth sometime. Or a butterfly, who knows. I believe that turns into a moth. Anybody study up on that? Isn't that beauty? That was no ugly looking grove. That's royal moth, I believe it's called royal. Pretty bug.
Macaroon, what they call it.
I don't know. That's the gold bug. I thought that was a fictitious bug. When I was in school, I read all the books in the library, and I read Edgar Allan Poe. And he had a story about the gold bug. Did anybody remember reading that story? You did. Wasn't it about this ship where these guys were wrecked on an island, they buried the gold at a certain location, and then they put a skull up in a tree, and if you used to tie a gold bug on a thread and run it through the left eye of that skull, that gold bug would crawled towards where the gold was buried. And I remember that part of the story pretty good. They had a black man climb up there, and they said, now he dropped it to the left eye. Well, it crawled off and never did find the gold. So they said, did you drop it to the left eye? Yes, sir, this eye right here. So he went back up there and dropped it to the right eye, and then the gold bug. I didn't find this bug. There was a guy in San Antonio somewhere called me all excited. He said, Malcolm, I'm going to get rich. I found a pure gold bug. And he was cleaning up some grass along his patio back there. And he said, I thought it was a gold nugget. I reached for it and moved, and reached for it and moved. And it has little wings, and it's got wing covers. But over the wing covers, it has a glass dome. In order for that beetle to fly, the glass dome has to fold up. And then the wing covers fold up, and then little wings come out, and it only flies in this direction. And then it can't fly that way. And while we photographed it good. And they're pretty rare. In fact, that's the only one I've ever seen. They feed on morning glories. And if you got morning glories, dig around the soil during the day. This particular one likes to hide in the soil during the day and come out at night and feed. This guy was digging around with morning glories. That's right. Now there's another beetle very similar to that, but it has some darker colors right in here. Now it feeds on sweet potatoes or morning glories, and it comes out daylight and it'll just cover sweet potato patch. I got that picture, but I can't get slides made anymore, so I don't have it. That gold bug, if he held his cover a certain way, he looked like a lady beetle. See, this is still it, but see, it looked like a twice-stabbed lady beetle. And when he either lowers or raises that glass dome up, then it's solid gold. And isn't that a beautiful bug? I was showing this program to a group of ladies one day, and this lady said, my gosh, what is the name of that iridescent green beetle? I said, it's an iridescent green beetle. It don't care what we call it. Scientists got to give these insects names so they can talk to each other. It's not their name. It's in larval stage, a woodworm that gets in stacked lumber and they leave a hole in it. Just some damage, but not a lot. Rhino beetle, whatever you want to call it, these things are really strong, tough. They're beautiful too. A lot of different ones. And this turned into this. And great big grubworms. That's the larval stage of these big beetles. You find them, they live on the ground eating on rotten roots or old dead rotten lumber or something. They don't feed on anything beneficial. I don't know. I mean, they could. They prefer a decaying lumber. And there's a regular grubworm. That goes to a June bug, and this turns into one of them big beetles. And glue bugs. Have y'all seen any of those lately?
Yeah.
Still do? When I was a kid, that's all I had to play with in around the car. I played got ants in there. Once you picked at them, they play. Well, I just spent all day out there playing with them. There wasn't no TV then.
It does look like a dragonfly.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got your dog.
Oh, good.
Right there. That's the duck. I didn't watch it go through the metamorphosis, but that's what the book tells us. It's, it looks long, but it's only about 5/8, 3/4 of an inch long. I had to get close up to it. And that's on my breathing aid. Well, look at that long one. Bird picked a hole in the pig, so it went over and had a feast. Y'all recognize it? I was up on top of Enchanted Rock one time, y'all know where Enchanted Rock is. And there was a little shower, and there was little pockets that could catch water, and there was a pocket there about 6 foot across, and it had about 5, 6 inches of water in it, and that thing was just floating there all in. I said, man, was that many legs? Sure, he couldn't have fell off in there and drowned. So anyway, I had a Ziploc bag, I always carry a Ziploc stop people out, and I put him on a Ziploc bag, got home, I put him on my desk in my office, and next morning, he was wide awake, and it was clawing to get out. I guess he went off in that water to reconstitute himself, to absorb moisture. Whatever, he didn't drown. It's a giant wheel bug. Very beneficial. See that cog wheel on her back? She won't bite you, won't sting you.
She stinks.
Ma'am?
She stinks.
No, that's not a squirrel. Nope. That's a giant wheel bug. It feeds on other insects. Feeds on all these carnivores only feed on herbivore insects. They don't eat another carnivore. At least that I've noticed.
Really? Grasshoppers too?
There is an assassin. Yeah, I guess it could be. Yeah, is that, they call that assassin bug too? Deers, cone-nosed bloodsucker. These things are bad. They carry Chagas disease.
Darwin's disease.
Huh?
Darwin's disease.
Is that what you call it?
Well, I mean, that's Darwin got it.
It lives off of blood. And we find them quite often on our screen waiting to get in the house. There's little stables a couple hundred yards from us, and they got horses over, and that's where you find them around kennels or horse stables. But it's kind of hard to get blood from a dog or a horse when they got a lot of hair to do. So they'll sit on your screen door and sit there all day, and when you open the door, they'll fly in and they know right where the bedroom is. And they will hide in the bedding, in the mattress somewhere until say midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning, and make sure you're sound asleep. This is my. And then they come out and they crawl around on you until they find a blood vessel that's close to the skin. And then she puts out an anesthetic like the dentist does. So that spot will be dead and she waits. And then when that spot's dead, then she sticks her snout in you and sucks herself full of blood until she's the shape of a football. And you'll never feel a thing. And if you wake up some morning and you got a mosquito bite about the size of a nickel, maybe even the size of the water, and inches and inches and inches, that's what got you. Well, if it's a great big mosquito bite like that, don't scratch it until you washed it, because she carries that sleeping sickness or Chagas disease. Now, she don't give it to you when she punctures you and sucks blood. It's only in her feces. And while she's sucking blood, she defecates right there too. And you scratch there, and you scratch that under the skin, and then maybe you get treated. And that's pretty bad mixture.
So what kind of insect? What is that? Mosquito?
You what?
What kind of mosquito? Oh, so what was it called?
Cone-nosed bloodsucker. Oh, it's like a big mosquito bite. That's why I said mosquito. It's like a great big mosquito bite. And it itches like that. Looks like that. Way bigger. And that was where she sucked blood. Anyway, sleep tight now. Now these things you will find in sandy country. I've never seen them in black land. It's a velvet bug. They'll come out after a shower. And they'll be all over. They're beautiful little red velvet. And I've only seen them once or twice in Del Dog down there where they live. At the shoe school in that sand out there in the shower, they would see them sometimes. This is on our first farm where we had sandy on, so I've never seen them in black land. They're just fucking. When I was a kid, I'd catch them and I'd cut the tail off. and then carry them around in my pocket and hand them to the girl. And that's the devil horse, the praying mantis. Of course, y'all know all about praying mantis. Very beneficial. There's a better look at it. And does anybody know what that is?
This is
Egg
big
case.
sick.
Praying mantis egg case.
Is it? I can kill them when they were asked.
Yeah.
I mean,
You and most people have been killing them because they think they're an ass.
yeah.
I went to visit a friend of mine. He'd been reading organic gardening and farming since the beginning. We was walking out to his garden, and there was one on a mesquite peach branch about that big. He broke it off, threw it on the ground, stomped on it. I said, gee, you know what you just did? Yeah, I killed an ass. I said, no, that wasn't an ass. And I explained it to him. That happens all the time. Now, how you can tell the difference? They look like an ass. And if an ass bites you, they hurt big time. If you're not sure, take a stick and touch it. If it's hard and you can't push it off the branch, leave it alone. An ass will have a pretty hair. Like that. There's an ass. See that beautiful hairdo? And they'll be soft and spongy and they crawl real slow. One of our employees walked under a hackberry limb and one fell here and hit his ear and he said, Malcolm, that thing hurt for 6 hours. Nothing you can do about it. My mom reached around over the chicken pen gate, rubbed one right here, put her in bed for 2 days. And I was out going through my fig trees and I had a little bitty brown one right here and didn't know it. It's been there quite a while because when I got through eating supper, I went to sit down in the easy chair and I was reading a paper and for some reason I rubbed right here against that booger and it got me. And it hurt. There's nothing you can do about it. It hurts. And the pain went in my joints and everywhere. And look at her. The Black Widow. She helped win World War II though, don't fuss at her too much. I've always heard, well actually in fact I read it, when I had enough money to finally put a scope on my 30-30 and a little pamphlet came with it, this is years ago, and he said the crosshairs were made out of Black Widow spider web. Well, I had a group like this somewhere, I forget where it was, and I mentioned that fact, and there was an old man in the crowd. He was about 80-some years old. He said, Beck, let me tell you my story. He said, in World War II, he said it was my job to find black widows and hold them a certain way and tickle them and they start making web and I had to keep pulling them at a certain real steady. If I pulled too fast, it got too thin. If I stopped, it'd make a knot. And then another guy come along with like a tuning fork and glue it tight and then they glue it into a scope. See that? It could take the recoil and never break. It was the strongest material they had at the time. Take the recoil of a high-powered rifle and not break. It would not break. Okay, there's the brown recluse. She is a bad one. That black widow hurts and hurts, but it's very seldom fatal. This one you won't feel anything, but you'll have a chunk of meat about this big around rot out. I mean, they can really get bad. And you tell her by the violin, or she's shaped like a violin, or that violin on her back. And it's called brown recluse because it is very recluse. If you got a bunch of junk stacked up in the corner of the shed somewhere in the garage or even in the room that you haven't been into in a long time, don't go sticking your hands around in there because that's where they hide.
How big is it?
This is a slide that goes under a microscope. What are they? A little over ½ inch, 5/8. So you see, she's not very big.
Extremely fast.
Extremely fast.
Very fast. They only have to feed once a year too. So don't think they're dead just because you starve them.
And the mud goblins. They love black spiders. Very beneficial. And well, I thought I had some more, but let me go back to the mud goblins. We used to keep these a long time ago. And a new swarm came out, and they don't like to catch them, and she told me, go clean me up a box while I put on my protective stuff. And I went in the shed, and I got an OB box. When I took the lid off, there was a mud dauber's nest up in the corner. And it was full of spiders. There was 77 spiders that mud dauber had sealed in all these chambers. 66 of them were black widows. Out of 77.
Oh my.
I felt real bad about breaking that thing open. Well, I was giving this talk someplace, and there was a lady in the crowd when I started talking about the spiders. She got all excited, and she introduced herself as Dr. So-and-so. She was an arachnist. She was a PhD on spiders. She says, when I go into a new environment, and I want to see what type of spiders are in that environment, she said, if I can find a mud dauber's nest, and it's no longer sealed over, she said, I'll just take it off and study those spiders, because mud dauber just eat the leg muscles. That's all they eat. The mud dauber larvae just eat the leg muscles. They leave the spider intact. And a lot of times they'll even still be alive. He says, if I can find a big mud dauber's nest, I can tell you exactly what spiders are in this environment. She says, I told her about the one I opened, there's 77 spiders, 66 of them were black widows. She says, I beat you. She said, I opened the nest, and every spider in it was a brown recluse.
Wow.
So don't knock the mud daubers down. They prefer black widows or brown recluse, the only two dangerous spiders we have. The rest are harmless. So let the mud daubers alone. And that's harlequin bug eggs. There'll always be 2 rows of 5, 10 in a group, usually. Sometimes I see this. They're just like little barrels. See where the stays come across the top? You see the hooks where the cork is? They're pretty. And there they are hatching. And there's that female again. She's a beauty. Surfer fly. And there's my beauty. Flowers. And another deal. Tell you what, get you a bug book and just start studying insects. There's no end. I think science has already cataloged 1 million species. They said if they ever got them all cataloged, there'd be 10 million species. And of all the insects that get cataloged, only 1% are considered troublesome. Only 1%. So every time you got 100, only one of them bad guys. And termites. Now in your house they're no good, but they're out on the farm or out on the, they're eating up that old grass, and you're going to make compost out of it, put it back in the soil. And I think y'all know what that is. Webworms. When I was a kid, they were extremely rare. Every now and then you'd see one. It'd be so high up I didn't even know what it was. All of a sudden they took over. And I found out why they took over. When they came out with that aerosol can that you could knock down a wasp nest, they took over. I suspected that, and I got proof of it. One day I was giving a talk over in Seguin, and I mentioned that the wasps prey on these things. But if you take a stick and tear the web open, then the wasp can easily get in there. Otherwise, they can't get to them. Webworm feeds at night when the wasps are asleep. And they sleep in that web during the day. That gives them protection from the wasps and the birds. He said, if you just take a stick and tear that thing open, he says they'll find it. First guy that told me about it, he said he was down in a Guadalupe River bottom getting this big machine ready that blows poison to the top of the tallest tree. He said while he was getting that machine ready, he happened to look over and he saw a webworm colony and a wasp carried off the webworm. He said when I was standing there looking, another wasp. He said, I just forgot about that machine. I stood there and watched. He said, I don't know how long it was. It might have been 30 minutes. It didn't seem like 30 minutes. But he said pretty soon the wasp carried off every webworm. He said, I felt real bad about spraying the rest of the day. Well, another guy topped that story. I was telling a story one day, and this old gentleman said, Beck, you're right. He says, I've watched those wasps get in there. He said, but that old gentleman, right, when you tear it open, they work right fast. He says, what I do, he says, as soon as I see a rubber one, I got a big old long stick by my back door. I walk out there and knock it out. I tear it out. He said it wasn't long. He said I'd watch, and within 5 or 10 minutes the wasp would be working. He said then next time I tear one open, he said within 2 or 3 minutes the wasp would be working. He says now when I walk out the back door with a stick, the wasp falls. They never were a problem, never until they came out with an aerosol can and you get knocked down. There they are looking at you. These are the intellectuals of the insect world. I find that, and I read about it in lots of bug books. Entomologists that study insects say that this is the only insect, the wasp, or the only insect on Earth that has the ability to learn, remember, and pass it on. And that's fact. They would catch insects and put them under a glass dome with an escape maze. All other insects beat themselves to death. Not the wasp. The wasp looks out. Wonder where the door is. I'll try that. It would escape the captor, put it back, and went right to the door. No other insect, if you accidentally found the door, would remember. They're the intellectuals of the insect world. They learn to know you, and once they learn to know you and know you're not a threat, they won't sting you unless you actually crush them. In our barn, no longer have cattle. I had a guy in there making stepping stones and edging and stuff, and there was I had lights down there, and there was right under the light switch was a nest about that big around, solid wasp. And old Larry Stewart worked down there, and every morning he would go in there and pet the wasp. He'd pet it real nice, talk to him, flip the light switch on. In the evening we'd pet him and tell him bye. Never did bother. And later on when he's gone, well, those wasps always stayed around, had a nest in there. And somebody came over one day and they wanted a piece of equipment or something I had, and I had a bunch of junk stored in that barn. And usually in the summertime I wear a big turtle shell hat. And I'm digging around for that piece of equipment, and I'm finally going to raise up. My hat bumped the chain hanging down with a big wasp nest like this. And I'm standing in a swarm of bees, and I say, hey, this is old Beck. They bumped me over and I one stung me.
Mr. Beck, you said that you would take those nests, if they were in a place where you didn't want them to be, that you would take that nest and move it somewhere else.
You got to be real slow when you do it. Yes, you can do that.
Okay, now what, do you glue it to the different places?
No, use a hat pin.
A hat pin?
Yeah, you know, long hat pin.
Yeah,
Stick it through that little tip. It's
Oh.
real hard where you
Yeah.
broke it loose.
yeah.
And then there are a long skinny nail. Yeah, that makes it easy. You know what a hat pin is, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Nobody wears hats, and the ladies that wear hats. But that works real good. You need to and leave it, you know, where they're not, where they can fly around. You know, don't put it in a bush so thick they can't get in and out. I'll run into people and say, all I got to do is get within 10 or 15 feet of those things, and they come and sting me and chase me. I asked them, I said, well, how many have you knocked down in your life? They said, well, knock them all down. I said, well, they pass that on. They all know you. No. We would have them all over our place, and nobody ever got bit.
Largest one I ever seen was 4 feet across.
Is that right?
Oh, my.
Caddo Lake over in East
Is
Texas.
that right? I don't think I'd want to move
I was busy tying a yo-yo fishing. Looked up, every one, right over my head.
They are the intellectuals of the insect world. Got a limited ability to learn and remember and pass on knowledge. I don't know what that is. It's there one day and gone the next. It's a bark louse or something like that. I think it's what it is, bark louse. They feed on the bark and they spin a little web, and you better photograph it if you want it because they're dead to its gone. And that's the cone-nosed butterfly. Well, remember when those things were really bad?
Yeah.
Swarming around, flying every direction, they were written up in all the newspapers, magazines. Some of these entomologists said they're going north, some said no, they ain't, they're going west, none said they're going south. So I watched them, they went everywhere. Anyway, and they naming two different species. One of them had a snout, and the other didn't have a snout. They had them separated, two separate species. Well, one day there was a kid out in front of our office, our showroom, catching him things, fingers. I said, son, you know what it is? He said, yeah, Mr. Beck, that's a snout-nosed butterfly. He said, now, you know, Mr. Beck, they lose that snout when they get old. I said, how do you know? Oh, I watched them. Nobody knew that. So I trapped a bunch of them in our big greenhouse. And when I trapped them in, they all had snouts. Sure enough, within about 7 days, none of them had snouts. They all, and nobody wrote it up in the paper, and nobody knew. You're a 14-year-old boy. And that was a 14-year-old boy that took a picture of all them baby beetles on the tree. And I felt sorry for that little spider. This is on a big green tub we got, and it's made like this. And she was dragging that worm, outweighed her 3 or 4 times at this angle, going really, really slow. Well, I put that in the bug book, but the guy that put out the new issue said, no, it had to be laying horizontal. So he put the picture horizontal, and I got it corrected. Those little jumping spiders and fly spiders. Oops. That's it. Y'all want
You got a space.
got to stay?
Yeah, there's,
Well, I'm gonna sleep right here, y'all. Thank you, David.
Anybody have any
Everybody
questions?
awake?
Anybody got any questions, Mr. Beck?
Very interesting.
Not even dark yet.
We certainly appreciate you being around, sir. I've listened to you many times. It's just great every time.
I'm gonna let you get a program next time.
Does the government ever come up with a reason that bees are disappearing?
So what? Sick
Does the government-
bees?
or-
There's all kinds of theories. Some think it's mite, or something gets in the hive. Others think it's pesticide. They don't know. And they say, boy, if we lose them, we're going to be in trouble. Well, if we lose them, we better stop using pesticides altogether. Because there's a whole lot of insects, like I showed y'all, that sharpie fly. It's a great pollinator. The Europeans brought the bees over. Who was doing the pollinating before the European bees came over, huh? We'd have to
Did you
do
ever
that
hear the
honey.
story about the bee caves in Austin?
No. I have
There's about 8 caves and they're all interconnected.
Is that right?
Back in the 1800s, the bees almost filled the caves up with honey.
Oh.
So some of the population of Austin decided they needed that honey better than the bees did, so they went up there and built fires in front of each of the caves and killed all the bees off. They hauled off 200 wagon loads of honey. But there wasn't no bees anymore.
Bees never went back. Leave it up to the humans. That's correct.
So it wasn't necessarily, pesticides. That was a long time before that.
Still, it was human activity. Stupidity.
We don't know.
Classifies it.
We don't know. That was very, very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will you use that super